A few months ago, a mysterious old letter was delivered to my friend Abby's New York City apartment. Turned out the letter had arrived at its destination nearly 70 years after it was sent. Since then, Abby and I have been on a mission to get the letter to the intended receiver. And finally today, we're on our way to deliver the now famous lost love letter.
Here we go!
To catch you up, the letter was from Lieutenant Joseph O. Matthews, a young soldier stationed in North Carolina. It was to his new wife, who was living in New York City in the West Village. For some reason, the letter was lost in the mail nearly 70 years ago. Within the letter, there were all kinds of little clues. Names were written, locations, dates. And so Abby and I made a video and a website, thelostletterproject.com, and shared these clues with the world in hopes that somebody could help find Lieutenant and Mrs. Joseph O. Matthews.
I'm hoping it's like a little old man and a little old lady that I get to be like, I'm finally delivering this to you. How cute would that be? My God, right? I love old people.
And within 24 hours of releasing the initial video, the story spread. ABC News, Huffington Post, the New York Post had all picked up the story. The world was enthralled with the search to deliver the World War II lost love letter.
And then my brother and sister-in-law text me. They're at a doctor's appointment, and Kelly Ripp was talking about the project. She's reading the Post on her show.
It was so intimate, you know, the way he wrote to her, the way he spoke to her. It was a really intense time for them. It's really just such a moving story to me.
The letter seemed to evoke this sentimental feeling of a simpler time, a time of written letters and romance and traditional families, something out of a Nicholas Sparks book. The first emails we got back informed us that a Joseph O. Matthews had passed away in 1999 and was buried in Arlington Cemetery, and his wife had died in 2001.
It was disappointing at the time because I was like, well, I really hope that he has kids. I hope there's like a family that we can still get this to.
Twitter followers soon got in the search, including a group of online genealogists. A woman named Megan Smolniak tweeted us that she had found Joseph's daughter. The daughter recognized her father's handwriting. The internet can be pretty awesome sometimes. Then we got another message on Twitter. Joe was my dad. He survived the war and had me with Cut, lived in the village, and 2 daughters in a second marriage. Amazing.
And that was awesome because that was something I was kind of nervous about. Like, if we find these people or their family, like, will they be like annoyed at this? Or you never know. Like, people might just like not really be interested in it at all. But it was exactly the opposite.
And so we were off to meet the family of Lieutenant Joseph O. Matthews.
This is such a weird thing to do.
This is Scott, Joseph's son.
The first thing I thought about is, well, where the hell has this letter been all that time?
And this is Joseph's daughter, Marna.
When I saw the video online, I knew immediately it was my dad. There was just instant recognition of the handwriting.
They'd spread out family photos. And finally we got to put faces to the names in the letter. And not just faces, but whole lives were laid out in front of us. Pictures, records, and other letters.
That's why I knew right away. That is so fascinating. That it was like...
And finally Abby delivered the letter.
Huh. And so, I wonder what the Postal Service would have to say about
I know it came from Seattle.
Clearly, having read it now that you and Abby gave it to us, it's clearly his letter saying, goodbye, I am shipping out. And he was being sent to the Pacific Ocean to fight at Okinawa.
About to set out for the conquest of Okinawa. 1,400 ships get underway, and the invasion forces aboard cast worry aside for the moment and beat a tune out on the old squeeze box, while Ernie Pyle left watches a fast-stepping jitterbug run up a little hot rug cutting for the biggest invasion fleet ever assembled in the Pacific.
At night, the Navy laid down a withering bombardment. And around the clock, the skies were filled with flaming kamikazes.
Okinawa was quite a long battle. It took a long time to slog up and down all the mountains and to actually take the island. So he could have been in combat for some time before he got wounded.
Joseph was battling alongside his platoon when they met enemy fire. Every member of his platoon died except Joseph, who was terribly injured and sent back to the United States to recover.
There was a whole set of these men returning from war and being at college trying to figure out some sort of normalcy.
Once he was back in the States, he reconnected with his wife Betty, whose nickname was Cut. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn.
And they ended up in the Chelsea Naval Hospital in Boston, where I was conceived when he got back together with his wife, the recipient of the letter. And 9 months after that, I was born, and then a year after that, they divorced.
The letter that Abby and I were delivering was a lost love letter from Scott's father to his mother, the mother who had left him and his father when he was only 10 months old.
At that time, clearly my father had a very close relationship with his wife, who he was writing the letter to. And that's a part of him I was never really connected to at all, is the emotional side of his relationship. So I never had a personal connection with the recipient of the letter until very, very late in her life. And then it was basically just that of an acquaintance rather than a close mother-son relationship.
This was not the sweet, sentimental love story that Abby and I and Kelly Ripa were expecting.
So the letter was romantic, and the whole idea of soldier going off to war is one thing, but on the other hand, living through that is just the agony of waiting for someone who's at war and the agony of being at war are really, really terrible things. So
At first it was like, I don't know what I was thinking. You know, I was romanticizing the whole thing about finding this little old lady, this little old man, and like, you know, handing them this letter.
The letter gave a glimpse into a love that didn't last, into the realities of life and war at that time, and some things surprising to the family.
The thing that I found most surprising actually was his reference to God in closing salutation of the letter.
my father wrote, "God is with us," and he was very disdainful of religion as I was growing up throughout the life when I knew him. And I'm pretty sure it was as a result of having been in the war and whatever scars he had from having been terrifically wounded and having his whole platoon die at the same time as he survived. Something must have happened to make him lose his faith.
I was always curious about my dad because he was he didn't volunteer information. So most of it, I just had to put two and two together.
Joseph went on to live a pretty great, full life. He graduated from Yale, remarried, had 2 daughters, Marna and Maeve, got a job at the CIA, had grandchildren, and even took up painting. Abby and I stayed and drank wine with the family as they laughed and shared their favorite stories and remembered their father. When Abby and I started this, we wanted to deliver the letter, but more importantly, we wanted to connect with people. And we did that. And we get to share that connection with others.
We really are connecting over family history a great deal, and that is just wonderful.
And Scott and Marna told us that through the Lost Letter Project Facebook site, they had connected with relatives from across the world that they never knew existed.
A cousin we didn't even know who wrote back on Facebook saying, "Hi, cuz." I was like, okay, hi. So it really was fascinating.
So in the end, this is a romantic story. just not in the way any of us expected.
But we're really happy this happened.
I'm just very grateful because it's an example to so many of us that these connections are important. And I'm glad you guys knew it.